Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I'm delighted to be joined by Dave from Talking Wolves to get his thoughts ahead of Sunday's game. Dave, how's oneself?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for having me on the channel, mate.
Pleasure, and thanks for joining me. Anyway, right, season so far, what do you make of it?
I keep describing as Wolves season as okay. I think it could be a lot worse considering the situation that we were in at the start of the season, but still could be a lot better considering some of the teams that we faced and dropped points against. Obviously, you would have known our situation. Lopetegui sort of thrown his toys out the pram quite late on in pre-season, appointed Gary O'Neill with about 5 days' notice before our first game against Manchester United. So he had no real pre-season. We lost a lot of big players, Ruben Neves, Raul Jimenez, João Moutinho. Um, and to be where we are at the moment is okay. I think if we can pick up some more points before Christmas, then great. But, when we've picked up some great results, which I'm sure we'll talk about. So I'm pleasantly surprised with how well we're doing at the moment. I think a lot of fans would have expected us to sort of be struggling or down there at the bottom of the table with the situation. But there have still been some frustrating moments this season, which I'm sure Gary O'Neill will want to improve on throughout the second half of the season.
Well, that's interesting. I always like context. So, do you know when people are speaking about how their season's going, I always like to take a step back and say, well, what were your expectations? From what you're saying, it sounds like you were almost expecting a relegation battle this season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always very, very positive, and I've always had the feeling that the Wolves squad is more than strong enough to remain in the Premier League, no problem. And it was always my thought that definitely there are three worse teams than Wolves in the Premier League, but sometimes you can't think like that. A lot of Wolves fans, as a lot of football fans are in general, very fickle, very reactionary. And when Lopetegui said he was going to leave the club, and Gary O'Neill was the man that was coming in, especially with his limited experience, it was crazy on social media. Wolves fans, that's it, we're going down. A lot of, not just Wolves fans, to be fair, a lot of YouTubers or fan channels like ourselves did predictions and had Wolves in the bottom three. But then after the first few games, even when we were dropping points, people were saying, hold on, Wolves are playing some all right stuff. So I'm happy. Gary O'Neill did an interview a couple of weeks ago, pretty much said, I think the club's aims this season with the situation was just keep us in the Premier League. And although we've slowed down a little bit, I still think we've got enough quality, we've got enough strength, and our points tally so far should be strong enough to help push towards survival before the end of the season.
It was it maybe a bit of a blessing in disguise having a change of manager while sort of shipping out the old guard, I guess you could call it, with Jimenez, Neves, Moutinho going. It's three sort of players that has been your spine for years gone at the same time you're changing manager. Do you think it was a good time for a big change?
Yes and no, I suppose. I think the Neves situation was one that was pretty obvious that was going to happen. I mean, he had a year left on his deal. I think unless Wolves had an unbelievable season last year and got Champions League, he wouldn't stay at the club. So Wolves still got great money for him. I think that was one of the big sort of surprise signings to Saudi Arabia due to his age. But Wolves still got a decent amount of money. But then it was difficult because Lopetegui was still calling a lot of the shots. There were players that were let go because he didn't like them. And then about 2 weeks before the season, he said, "Look, you're not buying the players that I want, so I want to leave the club." So we've just moved on 3 or 4 players because he didn't want them. And all of a sudden, Gary O'Neill walks in with sort of a disjointed squad. Thankfully, the club sorted it out by the end of the transfer window, brought in the right players. But I think you're right. I think it is good that, it's almost from that first game of the season against Manchester United, it was a clean slate, no real expectations going into that game, a lot of new players, and a fresh, young, new manager with new ideas to work with. And I think that's what's helped Wolves at times this season.
Well, speaking of your manager, what do you make of Gary O'Neill? Because obviously, former West Ham player, so we've got a bit of an interest in him in that regards. But are you happy with him thus far?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think he has pleasantly surprised people in some ways. There are, of course, a small minority of Wolves fans that feel that we should be doing better or feel like we could get a better head coach. But I think he was dealt a real difficult hand when he took the job. Um, and he's done okay. I think he's learning very quickly on the job. I think he's only had one year experience with Bournemouth, and then he came into this job at Wolves. And sort of the first 3 or 4 games, I could see he was making mistakes. Wolves fans were getting frustrated, and very quickly, I think he learned from those. And ever since that game against Manchester City, sorry, at home, he changed the system. you look on paper at the stats, I think we had 1 shot on target but scored 2 goals. But the game when I was at the ground, the game didn't feel like that. It felt like Wolves, although City were having a lot of the ball, Wolves controlled that game. Wolves knew exactly what they needed to do to get something out of the game. And from there on in, I looked at Gary O'Neill and I thought, all right, you've got an idea of what to do here. And from there on, I think we're unbeaten in about 5 or 6 games at home now. He's made Molineux a really difficult place to go. He's just got to improve form away from home because we're really struggling picking up points away from home. But he's getting better, and I think he is doing a lot better than what Wolves fans expected in terms of speaking to the press. He's getting a lot of airtime, to be fair. He was on Sky Sports Monday Night Football. And I think he's saying the right sort of thing. So I'm pleasantly surprised with how well he's doing at the moment.
Yeah, I when he left Bournemouth, I was a bit surprised they dismissed him.
Yeah.
But I was also at the same time a bit surprised he got a Premier League job so quickly. I thought he might have had to wait for like a sacking mid-season and become a bit of a desperate appointment, or drop down to the Championship and take a strong club in Championship. So when he got your club, I thought, oh, hang on a minute, this is what I consider an established Premier League club. But I've been very impressed with him, actually. The way he speaks, the way he holds himself in the media, like you said, Monday Night Football, the way he spoke about everything after the Fulham game when you got robbed. I'll say that you got robbed at Fulham, but the way Gary O'Neill handled himself after, he's impressed me quite a lot. Actually, I find myself really warming to him as a neutral, and maybe I'm a bit biased because of his West Ham connection, but I do find myself rooting for him actually because the way he conducts himself in the press. For those West Ham fans listening right now who perhaps haven't seen Wolves play, particularly under Gary O'Neill, how do you play? Because you spoke about changing the system. What is the new system?
So yeah, the current system he's playing at the moment is almost like a 3-4-3. So it is like a 3 at the back with the 2 wing backs. And then the sort of the 3 up top with the 2 central midfielders. At the start of the season, he came in and he was almost playing sort of a 4-2-3-1, and it was just sloppy defending. We were conceding a lot of goals. So we switched to this back 5 against Man City, and pretty much stuck with it ever since. And it's working well. I mean, in terms of goal scoring, that was the main issue for Wolves, and not just under Lopetegui. Bruno Lage struggled. Even Nuno in his last campaign at the club really struggled. I think those 3 seasons, Wolves averaged less than a goal a game. And now Gary O'Neill's come in. We scored in every game bar the opening day against Manchester United, looking a real threat going forward. We're still missing chances. We're getting into the right areas. A lot more players are getting into the box, which we weren't having. So we're playing this 3-4-3 at the moment. I think it's helping a lot. It's made us a little bit better defensively. I still don't think Gary O'Neill will be 100% happy with how we defended at times. I think, obviously, you mentioned the Fulham game earlier. I know we got shafted a little bit with VAR, but I think we should have still defended at times, their opening goal especially. And at other times throughout the season as well. Last week against Forest, we probably should have done better for their goal. So there's still little things that Wolves need to improve, but overall 3-4-3, and that's how I fully expect us to set up on Sunday at West Ham as well.
What's your hopes for the rest of the season?
Just stay out of trouble. I think obviously a nice cup run wouldn't go amiss. I think every team in the Premier League, not just teams outside the top 6, I think everyone wants a cup run. But a nice little cup run in the FA Cup, and just to stay out of trouble. As long as we don't get sucked in February, March, and we're sort of looking over our shoulder, I still want Wolves every weekend, whether we pick up a point or 3 points, to say, look, let's carry on looking up rather than looking over our shoulder. And thankfully, so far, we've been able to do that. But there have been certain times where we drop points at the weekend, and teams even like Sheffield United and Burnley were picking up points. I really hope they don't sort of start piling the pressure on us again. So stay up, and then we can go on and build from there, I think.
Just quickly, before we get on to your players individually, Gary O'Neill as a long-term manager, are you confident?
Yes and no. I think he's definitely got the ability and potential to be a long-term head coach at Wolves. But I think there have already been, I saw West Ham with a very, slight link possibly with him today if Moyes was to go. And I know there were some Wolves fans saying, well, it seems a bit of a sideways step. But for me, West Ham, I think, are a bigger club than Wolves, London-based, which I think is always a bonus. And obviously been in Europe recently, and the former player link. So I don't think that would be a ridiculous shout. And there have been small shouts about possibly a little bit soon for him to get the England job as well, especially with the amount of airtime that he's getting. It's almost as if the press are saying, right, look at this guy. Let's see if he's any good. And so that if he does okay with Wolves this season and Southgate, for whatever reason, if sacked or walks at the end of the Euros, there is a chance of that as well. But I think he's definitely got the potential to be a Premier League manager short term. I think he's clever enough. He's got the knowledge to do that as well. But yeah, let's wait and see. I think he's a very good coach there.
For anyone, again, that hasn't seen much of Wolves, which players should we look out for on Sunday? Who's in form?
I think Hwang is obviously scoring the goals at the moment. A real improvement after his first couple of campaigns at the club, where he struggled to get on the score sheet. He's already scored more goals than our top goal scorer did the whole of last season. It just seems to be the right place at the right time. In and around the box, he's deadly. I think his overall game could still do with a bit more, but seems to be getting in the right place. Mateus Cunha as well tends to play through the middle at the moment, but when he's on his game, he is a very, very good footballer. Started scoring goals. I think he's got a goal contribution in each of his last 5 games now as well, which is a huge bonus for Wolves. And probably another player, Mario Lemina, should start on Sunday. Really impressed me since he joined Wolves last January. Can take control of the game. Really tidy footballer. So for me, those 3. Big loss for us at the moment is obviously Pedro Neto. He won't be in the squad for Sunday's game. Still waiting for him to come back. He's been out over a month. He's still got the most assists in the Premier League, which shows how well he started the season. And then another player who should be back for Sunday is Ryan Ait-Nouri, the left back. Really missed him going forward, and hopefully he can play some part on Sunday as well.
All right, last thing about Wolves before we're talking about my team, Craig Dawson.
Yeah.
What do you think? He's still a bit of a cult hero around these parts. How have you taken to him at the Molineux?
He's doing really well. I think he's been a big, like I said earlier, I think we should still be defensively a little bit better, but I think he had a massive impact on us when he joined last January. I think he was a big reason why Wolves stayed up ultimately, especially at the games at Molineux. He was, phenomenal. So yeah, he's been great for us and a real bonus. And I think obviously West Ham fans showed how disappointed they were when he was, when he moved to Wolves, and I think that had a good effect. And Wolves fans were thinking, hold on, we might actually be signing someone pretty decent here. So yeah, very rarely puts a foot wrong. The game earlier on this season against Man City when we beat them 2-1, I've never seen anyone defend against Erling Haaland like Craig Dawson did. Haaland did not have a sniff all game. Which is phenomenal performance. But yeah, been a really good signing for Wolves. So thank you, West Ham.
Love that. Right, West Ham, what do you make of us?
I actually think West Ham have done okay. I think it's, so far this season, I know it's always very doom and gloom. I know a couple of West Ham fans, and I think it's very difficult sometimes when you're playing Thursday night football as well to sort of translate that form. And I think it was huge for you guys. Obviously, we're recording this of the Thursday evening. It was huge for you guys to get the win, especially after the defeat at the weekend as well. But that's the second time now. I mean, we played Forest last weekend after the last 5-0 to Fulham. Then Fulham have just beat you guys 5-0. We've got to face off against you as well. But like I said, I think the result on Thursday for you was big to try and, take that little bit of pressure off going into Sunday. I don't know. I mean, I know we were sort of had a small discussion and you asked the question in terms of quality of football. And, I think sometimes when you're a team outside the top 6, top 7, you do have to play boring and dull football to still get results. I think West Ham fans know they are a huge club. They've played in European football. They've won a European trophy. So maybe they should change style and take that step up and push on a little bit, which probably hasn't happened. So I do think maybe Moyes' time is coming to an end at the club. And it would be very interesting to see West Ham do get in. I know, for argument's sake, I think there were people expecting West Ham to start quite slowly and Moyes to go sooner rather than later. I know Lopetegui was one manager probably keeping a close eye on that situation because he stayed in and around Wolverhampton, expecting a good Premier League job to come up sooner than it did. And I think West Ham, as far as I was concerned, West Ham was a team that he was keeping his eye on, which obviously hasn't happened as of yet. So, look, I think you're doing okay. I think you'll be absolutely fine. Obviously, no worries of relegation or whatnot, but I think sometimes, especially after you've just won a European trophy, you want to carry on building, and it seems like West Ham have just sort of stood still at the moment.
Any players you admire from West Ham?
I think Kudus is a great player. I think that was a great signing by West Ham. I think Paquette is still, a phenomenal player as well. And Jarrod Bowen, Jarrod Bowen's had a great career. How he's risen through the leagues, and he's always a danger for any team. So I think those attacking players for West Ham can be a handful. and that's what I'll be concerned about on Sunday. Like I said, our away form's not great. Be fantastic if we can win, but I think it's going to be a really tricky game for Wolves.
Yeah, I was just about to say to you, let's turn our attention to the game on Sunday then. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I mean, we've dropped points so far away against Luton, Sheffield United, Crystal Palace. On paper, they're probably teams and games that Wolves would expect to get a little bit more.
Why is it? Like, why do you think your form drops off so much when you're away from home compared to playing at the Molineux?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think we always start a lot slower. I think we always, for whatever reason, really struggle to get a foothold of the game. And I think typically with how our fixtures have sort of gone, we've played a lot of strong teams at home where we've got the backing of the fans. You do have that. Sometimes you have that little bit more confidence that you can play. And Gary O'Neill, I think, has made it pretty clear that he wants to sit deep or at least play a counter-attacking style of football. I mean, this week we played Burnley and Forest that have both allowed us to have a lot of the ball. And at times we've had 60% possession. What can we do with this? So that's why at West Ham, it might be slightly different because, you may allow us to sit a bit deeper and we can play our counter-attacking game. But again, when we're playing the Lutons and the Sheffield Uniteds, it's like they're allowing us to have the ball, and even away from home, we don't quite know what to do with it. And we've had slow starts. I think in 3 of the last 4 games we've conceded in the first 15 minutes. Wolves need to cut that out as well. So it's really just trying to start from the first whistle with Wolves. They've started far too slowly and just not taking advantage. But yeah, in regards to this game, I really don't know what to say. I don't know how to predict it because, like I said, you've lost heavily last weekend, but sort of reacted to tonight with the Europa League win. So it just depends what the Wolves turn up. I really don't know which sides are going to turn up on Sunday.
Well, I'm going to ask you to get your crystal ball out, please, Dave. Yeah. Give us a score prediction.
My heart is saying that Wolves will edge it 2-1, but I think my head, realistically, and still being quite positive, is saying a 1-1 draw.
Would you be okay with a draw?
I'd take it. I think I'd take a draw on the road. To be fair, I think I'd take a draw.
Fantastic. Well, Dave, thank you very much. Much appreciated. As always, if you want to hear and see more from Dave, head over to his YouTube channel, Talking Wolves. I'll put a link in the description below, and his latest video will be on your screen in about 5 seconds' time. If you enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up. Subscribe if you damn chat, and Dave, I'll catch you in a bit.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.